After the attacks on October 7th, we are seeing in the media, particularly from Spain, a significant increase in hostility against Israel and against Jews. We haven't seen anything like this since the Holocaust. This is unprecedented, and many say that the traditional strategy of trying to explain no longer works and that we need a new communication strategy. And thank God we have organizations like ACOM who take care of this whole struggle of taking on that front. With me is ACOM's Vice President and spokesperson, Rosa Reigia, a political scientist with experience in both politics and business. She is a media analyst in Spain and also in other countries, analyzing issues related to the Middle East and topics of anti-Semitism. And welcome to our channel.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be with you. And thank you as well for the work you do, spreading information and also fighting. Thank you.
What is happening? What is the media situation in Spain against Israel, and can it be fought this way?
Yes, in Spain and in many places around the world, and specifically in Europe, which is perhaps what I know best. Obviously, Spain is my country, and here we are experiencing this. We are experiencing it from the institutions. We are experiencing harassment from the state power, from public institutions, from universities, from parliaments, ministries. So that's the big problem in Spain, that there is targeting and a certain persecution from public institutions. With money from all Spaniards, which includes the money of all Spanish Jews, who pay taxes and see that it is being used to our own legal detriment. In some cases, it's social. In others, it's also in the media. That is to say, there is indeed deliberate harassment against people. We have seen many examples in the last 2 years in Spain. This is not new. In other words, in Spain, the anti-Semitic trend comes from and is deeply rooted in the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions Group, the discriminatory Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions Group, which Spanish courts consider discriminatory and illegal because of the discrimination they cause, which is very intertwined with the Podemos groups and all their affiliated organizations. Podemos originally in 2014-15. When it rises to power, it generates a wave of proposals from the institutions, from small town councils that don't even have enough money to build a sports center for their kids. But they do have money to promote hatred through cultural initiatives, to boycott cultural initiatives, to send money to someone in Palestine, which no one will ever control, or that even ends up in the hands of bloodthirsty terrorists with programs like Pay for Slay, which is paying terrorists who kill Jews. This happens with the Palestinian National Authority. Let no one be fooled into thinking that it's just the terrible terrorists from Hamas. No, even those who are supposed to be the good guys also have these programs. And these programs are funded by money from small Spanish towns or from donations or funding from our government that ends up in the hands of terrorists. Because there is no control and because there is a real interest in promoting these kinds of organizations, they ultimately want to break the world order. They want to break the Western order, Western culture, Judeo-Christian culture, which I also say many times, and we shouldn't forget about this. How was Europe founded and how did it expand throughout the world with values like the rule of law and equality? Well, in the end, there are some groups that I do believe are organized that are trying to go against all of this. Unfortunately, in Spain, they gain power and promote these actions from powerful positions. It's a strong machine.
A powerful machine during or before the Holocaust, when the Nazi Party rose to power. One of the first things they do is the boycott against Jews, Jewish doctors, Jewish products, and they go and mark Jewish products. Is that what you're describing? The Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions is this organization that is in charge of pointing out Jewish products from Jews, from the nation, which is Israel. And what you're describing to me, that it's something systematic that comes from the government, on one hand it shocks me, but on the other hand, maybe the solution comes from there, from putting in another government, or is there a solution through giving a counter-media response?
Well, both things. Obviously, having this government leave power would be very beneficial, but in my opinion, it wouldn't just be beneficial for Jews, it would be beneficial for all Spaniards. It's a very corrupt government. The president's entire family and all his close associates are involved in corruption cases. I don't want to get into that area because maybe that's not where we need to go. But our institutions are being corrupted. They have the ability to keep influencing. Obviously, the government, through laws, through impositions, there are many dynamics in our institutions that are being harmful to Spaniards and even more so to Jews in particular. I mean, they're even reaching museums like the Reina Sofia, which even held an exhibition called From the River to the Sea. So the seriousness, it's of such magnitude that sometimes it almost seems like something out of a movie, right? I mean, how can all of this come together in one place? And nothing happens. Europe doesn't wake up and there's nothing. Well, there also needs to be an awakening among Spaniards about what's happening specifically against the Jewish people. Deep down, I'm telling you, this is against all Spaniards, violating the rule of law and our constitution. When they target one person, they eventually go after everyone who disagrees with the government. This is typical for Jewish people, like a canary in a coal mine. Well, in the end, sometimes we are the first ones to detect these kinds of aggressions, these kinds of intimidations, these kinds of discriminations. The good thing about Spain and many other countries is, well, I mentioned Spain since that's where I'm from, is that there are organizations like ACOM, which are civil society organizations. They're not Jewish organizations per se. That is, we defend the right of Jews to live in Spain in freedom and under all the laws. Like any other Spaniard, we defend non-discrimination, we defend the existence of the State of Israel, and we also want the relations between Spain and the State of Israel to be smooth, to be wonderful. All this that the government of Spain is doing, which you may have also seen, trying to boycott not only the products, which they also do, not only cinemas, I mean movies. There have been shows by Mayumana, for example, too, that they wanted to discriminate against, and there have been cases where performances were canceled. Beyond all this, recently in Barcelona, there was a website that marked all the Jewish businesses in Barcelona with yellow dots.
Well,
Well, we have so many things like this that obviously remind us of the beginnings of the Nazi regime. No, as we well know, it was a tragedy for the Jews, but it was also a tragedy for the free world. And those are like little warnings that the world gives us, which we have to manage to express and spread to everyone. For us, it's sometimes very obvious to see, but for the rest of the people, it's not so obvious because it's not part of their social or cultural imagination. They haven't experienced or known it. And Jewish culture isn't very prominent in Spain. There isn't any special in depth knowledge, neither about Jewish culture in general, nor much less about what the state of Israel is. So that struggle is also very important for us because making ourselves known, having people understand, having people know, having people be able to fight back. All these fake news sometimes, look, I tell you, I think they're not even technically fake news. I mean, not even the media outlet creates the fake news. I mean, the media just takes the news. The media doesn't make it up, it's the source. For example, during the Gaza war, this has been Hamas because the journalists were getting their information from Al Jazeera, which is a media outlet with a clear bias. So in the end, they just copied and pasted. They copy and paste. I mean, they translate, copy and paste. So in the end, what there really is a gigantic infrastructure with a lot of money from many Arab countries. Well, there's a whole conflict, and we would have to talk for hours about the differences, also internal ones, in the different religious trends within Arab countries that makes some people be on one side and others on the other. And that's why the Abraham Accords are so important. And there are a lot of opportunities that will open up in the future that have already started and will probably continue, which will make this change. I mean, there's a very complex, very well constructed dynamic that makes all of this take this direction. And then when you have a government that only clings to that, on one hand, because they're anti Semites, because they have partners who are openly anti Semitic, because this government has shown itself through its words and especially its actions every day, often saying one thing but doing the opposite. They have tried to whitewash themselves in 1,000 ways, but the reality is that they are, I say it many times, they have become the best spokespeople for Hamas in the world. And that will have disastrous consequences for Spain. And what we are achieving is, with this leadership from Spain, the boycott of Israel. I'm referring to Spain and its government, not the Spanish people. I believe this government represents the Spanish people less than any in history. Um, in the end, the ones you harm are the Spanish people themselves. The ones who are isolating ourselves are the Spanish people. It's Spain that's isolating us. This disastrous government, this corrupt government, it's the Spanish people, whether we are Jewish or not. If Spain lacks military defense by refusing to work with an Israeli company, it's the Spanish people who lose. What happens if you try to impress the United States or Morocco instead? And in the end, it turns out that in the region, Morocco becomes the main ally of a lot of important countries in the world, like Israel and like the United States. The ones who lose are the Spanish people. So in the end, what this government is achieving is isolating the Spanish people, not isolating Israel. Because the free world, the intelligent world, the world that doesn't want to dominate, the world that wants the world to be led by the rule of law, doesn't accept this government's actions. So in the end, what we have is a terrifying government, because it truly is a terrifying government for the Spanish people. And I say that as a Spanish woman. And then we have a disastrous and frightening government as well. On the other hand, for the Jews, because they are putting us in the crosshairs, they are creating hatred because they are encouraging it, they are feeding it, they are fueling hatred against the Jews. In Spain, do Spaniards not hate Jews? Because if you walk down the street, nothing happens to you for being Jewish in general, and even less so before. Yes, there were people who have prejudices. There are people who have religious prejudices. There are people who have political prejudices. That will always exist. And thank God I have to tell you that it exists, because that means we are free. That means we have the ability to think. What we have to be able to do is, first, to be able to freely refute them, and second, to manage to re-educate people. I mean, if you are raised in hatred like the Palestinians are, you can't do anything. Those children will hate Jews because they are taught to hate. If Spaniards are being bombarded day and night at ACOM, we've recently published a report about the number of news stories that have come out about Gaza and their bias, and what has come out, for example, about Iran or Sudan. That's the difference. It's so brutal that you realize they're, in a way, brainwashing people. Because people don't have time to stop and think, to look into and investigate each piece of news. They just stick with the headline and not much else. If headlines constantly target, stigmatize, and demonize Israel, people eventually believe Israel is the real villain, but that's not true. Entonces, nosotros desde ACO, that's exactly what we do. It's a direct and radical fight against this kind of people. And we don't care about their political affiliation. If they're from the government and they're left wing, we go after them because they're left wing. If they're right wing, because they're right wing. If they're centrist, they're centrist. I mean, people who don't respect Jews, people who don't respect Israel's right to exist, we go against them radically because we believe, first, that they're wrong, and second, that in most cases they're committing a crime of discrimination.
Spain is one of my top 3 social media audiences, which I think illustrates the phenomenon I'm describing. The thing is, we have to make a distinction between what the Spanish government does and what a good part of the Spanish people are asking for. I see it reflected on social media. And actually, I'm going to confess something. Many of the things I sometimes say are facts that I get from ACOM. I've been following ACOM for quite a few years now, and they have very valuable content firsthand and very fast. That's why I invite the audience. If you want to learn more about ACOM's content, you can look them up on Instagram. I'll leave everything in the description. You just have to click and you'll get there, which is ACOM Israel, and also on the social network X, which is ACOM. Little mouse below, that's it, and there you can get there, and I'll leave everything in the description. Once again, Rosa, I want to leave the audience here with this desire to know more. I'm sure more than one Spaniard is watching this video and is banging on the table, unable to believe that the government does these things. And I'm just going to tell you something, like, if you're not Spanish, you see it from the outside. Viewing Spain's dynamics from the outside, there are times when I see that if Spaniards say they're proud of Spain, they're called fascists just because they carry a Spanish flag or wear a symbol that Spaniards have had for centuries, fascists. But anyone familiar with the literature and fascism, and you see that it's precisely those governments, those kinds of groups, and their way of censoring and attacking specifically, that's fascism. It's ironic, but I'll leave it here. Rosa, thanks for being here and for your great work with Acomacion. You can find them on social media. Links are in the description.
Thank you so much, and keep up the exceptional work you do.